screen, so I could say hello to you.
Good evening, sir. All right, so we are beginning now. Namaste and greetings. I, Purvi Narayan, researcher at IMPRI, Impact and Policy Research Institute, Prabhav एवं नीति अनुसंधान संस्थान नई दिल्ली, extend my warmest welcome to you all to IMPRI Web Policy Learning. Today marks day 8 of Diplomacy, Foreign Policy and Geopolitics Youth Fellowship, Cohort 2.0. An online national autumn school program, a 3-month immersive online introductory leadership certificate training fellowship program organized by IMPRI, Center for International Relations and Strategic Studies. The chair for this program is Professor Swaran Singh, Professor and Chairperson, Center for International Politics, Organization and Disarmament, CIPOD, Jawaharlal Nehru University, JNU, New Delhi, and co-chair Professor Sanjukta Bhattacharya ji, a retired professor, International Relations, Jawadpur University, Kolkata, visiting professor at IMPRI, and also Dr. Simi Mehta ji, CEO and editorial director at IMPRI. The conveners of the program are Dr. Arjun Kumar ji and Dr. Simi Mehta ji. Before we begin, I would now like to announce the state the housekeeping rules. It is requested to join the meeting on time. There will be a Q&A session after each presentation. Share your questions in the Q&A box and not in the chat box. And also make sure that your questions are not posted as an anonymous attendee. And also ensure that your questions are also precise. Refrain from making any general comments in the questions to save time. I would now like to invite our chair, Dr. Sanjukta Bhattacharya ji, and also Professor Swaran Singh ji for their opening remarks before we begin today's session. Sir, we can begin with you and then with ma'am.
Okay, I think I must say that it's a great pleasure to join this session along with Professor Bhattacharya. I have known her for almost 3 decades, if not more than that. And it's a pleasure to be together on this program of Diplomacy, Foreign Policy and Geopolitics Youth Fellowship, a 3 months immersive program that IMPRI is running for Cohort 2 between July and October this year. And I had one chance to meet this cohort, and I remember it's a very energetic and curious young team. And I'm sure by now they have also developed certain amount of mutual bonhomie and warmth among themselves and known each other better, and also each other's workforce focus they are now increasingly aware of. We are, I think, looking forward to their brief presentations to be made today. So without taking much of your time, I would be more than happy to carefully listen to each of your presentations, and if I have some inputs to see that if I can make any value addition to your own research through either questions or comments, I will prefer to use my time for that instead. And I'm sure all of you are today almost edging to make your presentations. You've been preparing for it. And with that, I will hand it over to Professor Bhattacharya. She may have also some comments to make.
Thank you, Swaran. Likewise, it's really nice seeing you again over here. We have known each other a long time. And in fact, this forum is giving us an opportunity to, see each other, kind of, also collaborate in the same thing. So it's really wonderful. So far as the participants are concerned, I have seen all your what you've submitted by way of basically abstracts. So I know what you're going to talk about, and I'm looking forward to hearing your presentations. I'm sure they're going to be good. Just please keep to the time so that we can finish in time. I believe that you're going to be given a second day, but today we have 15 presentations. So do please keep to the time. Without any further wasting of time, will we maybe start?
Absolutely, ma'am. Thank you so much for your opening remarks. And with this, we will now move ahead to the fellows' creative project presentation. Each fellow is requested to present their work within 4 to 5 minutes, and after which our chairs will share their remarks. So I'll be announcing the name one by one, and you can start with your presentation. So for our first presentation, we have Tashvi Chawla. Tashvi ji, would you like to go ahead with your presentation now?
Hello, am I audible?
Yes, you are audible.
And with, okay, give me a moment, I'll share my screen. Oh, is that visible? 1 second.
Yes, it is visible to us.
Let me put the I Is it okay if I share it like
Yes, it's fine, Tashvi. Just see if you're able to shift the slides.
yeah,
Otherwise, it's fine.
actually the Zoom and Canva is mixing up a bit. All right. 1 second. I will put Zoom here. Perfect. Shall I start?
Yes,
Alright.
Please go ahead.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Tashvi Chawla, and today I'm presenting my research topic titled Blueprints from Bharat Towards a Pragmatic Digital Non-Alignment. Let me begin by stating the reality. The digital world today is split into two spheres. On one side is the Western model, majorly dominated by the United States with its tech giants, and on the other hand, we have China with its state led digital infrastructure. Most of the global south finds itself in the middle of this tug of war. And the question that arises is pretty simple: which one shall we choose? Or can we chart our own different digital path? Now, this being the premise puts the global south in a dilemma. On one hand, it depends on US platforms like Google, Meta, Microsoft that dominate software and data flows. And on the other hand, we have affordable Chinese hardware, that is 5G networks to surveillance systems, which, by the way, is expanding rapidly across Africa and Asia. Now, this bipolarity creates the risk of compromising one's sovereignty in the digital order. The choices for the global south shrinks to a binary, and national digital futures risk being dictated by external powers, leaving global south out of the policy debate. Now, this is the dilemma at the heart of the global south's digital journey. This leads me to the core idea of my work, which is pragmatic digital non alignment. It builds on the principle of agency in a bipolar digital order. It is not about sitting on the fence but it is rather standing on your own ground. Here the concept does not follow the path of neutrality, but of absolute detachment, but it acknowledges that while complete independence in the digital sphere is unrealistic, and countries can still carve a third path, which is relative autonomy. It means saying yes to partnerships, but no to dependence. The idea is pretty simple. No country today can thrive in isolation, but neither should any country's digital destiny be dictated by Washington or by Beijing, given that their approaches are poles apart as well. Pragmatic non alignment is about keeping the freedom to choose, to adapt, to innovate on our own terms. It allows states to engage with both sides, adopt technologies selectively, and safeguard their decision making capacity. In this way, pragmatism becomes the bridge between global interdependence and national digital sovereignty. This concept is used to cater to the global south's dilemma by positioning India as the torchbearer. Keeping the concept of pragmatic digital non alignment at the core, these are the guiding threads of my research. Firstly, the paper defines the idea of pragmatic digital non alignment. Then it assesses India's model of digital public infrastructure. It also critically examines India's digital diplomacy and the position of India's model in it. And then it evaluates how India can leverage the equation of autonomy versus dependence to provide a third path while keeping the idea of pragmatic digital non-alignment as its driving force. The paper analyzes the digital model of India, which is digital public infrastructure, which includes Aadhaar, UPI, DigiLocker, etc. Now, India has built this system which is designed around governance and citizens rather than profits and surveillance. We can see that Aadhaar provides digital identity to over 1.3 billion people. UPI now processes more than 10 billion transactions an hour, revolutionizing financial inclusion. DigiLocker also streamlines access to official documents for millions. Together, this shows that technology can be built for the public good, which is accessible, scalable, and citizen centric. The study is also very well aware and acknowledges the challenges and the paradox that prevail. Poverty, illiteracy, and digital divide remain barriers to true inclusion. At the same time, while championing autonomy, India still relies on American cloud services and Chinese hardware in key sectors. This very paradox between sovereignty and dependence captures the very origin of the concept of pragmatic digital non alignment, which is about finding the perfect strategic balance.
And last 1 minute to wrap up.
Sure. To analyze this further, my research used 3 steps: comparative analysis, policy negotiation, policy and discourse review, case illustrations of the countries which are opting India's DPI, and theoretical framing of the concept. Oops. The findings of this study tries to draw are first that digital non-alignment is not about absolute neutrality. It is about relative autonomy. Second, that India plays 2 roles. Number one, of model builder through its DPI, and number two, of a paradoxical adopter through its reliance on external ecosystems and deriving a strategic balance from them. And third, for the global south, that the key lesson is that in the bipolar world, strategic space does exist, but it must be adopted wisely. The paper also provides policy recommendations based on its assessment. Domestically, it recommends to fill up the cleavages in India's own model by strengthening digital literacy, affordability, and inclusion so that the public infrastructures benefits everyone and not just the urban elite. And secondly, on an international level, it recommends offering DPI as a flexible public good in digital diplomacy, a good that can be adapted to local context, with the guiding principle being autonomy lies in balance, not in isolation. To conclude, digital non-alignment is not a nostalgia from the Cold War era, but a forward-looking strategy. India has the potential to show to the global south that the global south does not have to be locked between Washington or Beijing, but it can actually prioritize citizen centric models, a third way where states can build futures on their own. In this journey, autonomy stands with balance and strategy. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sanjukta, for sharing your presentation with us. Now we can have remarks from Swaran sir over your presentation. Sir,
Yes.
Very quick 2, 3 comments for Ms. Chawla. Uh, Take them in your stride. You need not accept all my comments. And the first one is a bit radical. I think instead of calling it digital non-alignment, digital multi-alignment perhaps would be a more accurate way India is approaching and this whole digital infrastructure and digitalization. For that, have a look at India's both hosting of the summit meeting and then being the lead chair in a global partnership for AI. And India's working together with Japan, Taiwan, South Korea, and United States for semiconductors. And the most recent AI and digital track opened by Shanghai Cooperation Organization, where again India is there. So India is engaging with all sides in that sense, both in obtaining access to digitalization and digital infrastructure, and then also trying to share it in global south. So it's a rather well-rounded approach to engage as much as we can. So fundamentally, if your lens is one of digital multi-alignment, where of course the core Indian contribution you beautifully highlighted will stay, but just the frame and the lens of how you look at it will change.
All right.
That's my quick comments to you. Otherwise, excellent subject and a very good presentation.
Thank you, sir.
Rashmi, I agree with Professor Singh. And I think I've commented on this earlier, and I say the same thing. In fact, multi-alignment is fine, but when it comes to alignment, it has a specific meaning. Multi-alignment, non-alignment, all of them would have specific meanings. What you are actually in your presentation, from what I can gather, it's more like autonomy, all right? And it kind of meets India's own needs, and therefore, basically it does what it does. Whereas you see, AI is fine and all that. What it is being used for, all right, is what India actually needs to do for its own citizens, all right? Now, so far as the US and China are concerned, they're also concerned about security, and I'm sure we also use. It's not just DigiLocker and UPI. We must be also using AI and AI tools for our security purposes. All right. So it's more like autonomy. It's a question of not alignment, because as I said, alignment and non-alignment, they have specific meanings. All right. In geopolitics. So we are not aligned even now, all right, in the political field with anyone, all right. So it's a new widened definition. We say multi-alignment, but who are we aligned with in any case? Alignment comes from ally, all right. So basically, well, no standing enemies, no standing friends, that kind of thing. In geopolitics, it's always whoever. So here too, it's more like, digital autonomy. So if you can somehow, uh, it's up to you. Using the word non-alignment, but in that case, you must explain exactly what you mean by non-alignment. All right. So otherwise, I'd say this. That's my comment.
Yeah, I do realize the lens is a bit radical. It does not click. We have to explain the concept a bit. So I'll maybe work on the framing a bit more.
Right. Yeah.
Right. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am, for your brief remarks over the presentation. Next, we have presentation from Vidhi. Vidhi, are you present with us? You can go ahead now.
Yes, I'll share my screen. Good evening. Is it available?
It's coming. It sometimes takes few seconds. It's now on my screen. Yes.
Can I start?
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay, so good evening, everyone. So my topic for research is Asia's rising soft power and how it influences and
If you could
promotes.
speak a bit louder.
Okay, so my topic is Asia's rising soft power and how it influences its identity and influence and what international impact it has. So for my topic, I'll be taking a regional study of India, South Korea, China, Japan, and Thailand, which is purposeful, which I'll get to. My topic is going to focus on Western versus Eastern soft power, which after COVID-19 has risen. So to provide a comparative narrative, I'll be taking into account all five of this, and rather than any one specifically, and having a comparative analysis as my methodology. So my paper will include, firstly, I'll be explaining on soft power, and there are various theories of soft power that will be explained and how it is connected to Asian soft power as well as soft power overall. So it comes under constructive and liberal theory. So what soft power is, it rests on the shape of preferences of others, of yourself, of the ability to get what you want without coercion or any payments, but rather through attraction. So it's either by the country's cultures, political ideas, or policies. So for my objective, as I mentioned, is to have an Asian versus Western soft power narrative, and especially after the pandemic, which has grown, and to identify the factors that are contributing to this and the impact of the soft power. So there are various soft power factors that have contributed to it, like language, social media, culture, and government brandings, etc. So firstly, the social media has played a huge role in maintaining an identity of a country, and obviously cinema and heritage, which are yoga or are Buddhism. A lot of countries have their own rich heritage that we cannot start to emphasize on because it's very vast. All of these factors are celebrated and explored all over around the world, which is leading to a lot of soft power and as various impacts directly and indirectly. If we come to our impacts, there are various tourism and GDP and very much of talent acquisition, because a lot of students and people are willing to immigrate or go there because of what we have expected of the country. And these factors have actually very quantitative impacts and have a huge contribution to the GDP, which I'll be including in my paper, very in depth of every factor and impact. And my methodology will be comparative analysis of every country. It will be according to the factors, according to the income, as well as over the years, which I'm mainly aim at post-pandemic years. There will be a case study if I can find something very relative, but this is our primary methodology of mine. And to conclude, it is very evident that COVID-19 has played a very important role, because soft power has been used over the past decade, but the amount of influence that we are seeing after COVID-19 is very vast. And of course, there is a gap between Western and Asian soft power. We are not that close or up, but the gap is reducing. And this is what I'm going to address. I hope to address with my paper. And we have grown up and we have been surrounded by Western culture, but Asia is not a passive consumer, but a rather producer of various global cultures. This is what will be explored in my paper. And it obviously goes beyond specific cases and specific country-wise, and I intend to integrate various countries and their strategies and diplomacy together to explore the Asian soft power altogether. And as the quote says, Asia soft power is defining feature of the contemporary world, one with whose scope, strategy, and significance will only continue to expand over the next few years, which we are not there yet. And that is what I want to lead towards with my paper. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Sir, we can have your remarks over the presentation.
Thank you, Ridhi. I think I see that youngsters are very good with presentations. Nice presentation.
Thank you.
But if I understood you right, Ridhi, you're trying to juxtapose Western and Asian
Yes.
conceptions of soft power, and whether they are complementing or contesting with each other. But your countries' case studies are only Asian countries,
Yes.
global south. So we don't have a clear comparison of who represents West in that case. Of course, the more contemporary debates on soft power are primarily Harvard University led. So
Yeah.
That is understandable, but in choosing your cases, either you have to look at how Asian powers or Asian nations are beginning to be aware of soft power and not put it in terms of comparison with the West. Because if you put comparison with the West, you need some examples from the West as well to showcase. And also, it will be difficult to represent Asia by being country specific. If you can, it is easier and more accurate to be culture specific. For example, Indic civilization or scenic civilization culture, which are
Okay.
across Asia. They go all the way
Okay.
to Southeast Asia, etc. Because choice of countries then becomes difficult. Or just take one country. India would be a great case by itself,
Okay.
or China, which is another civilizational society. So I think you have to really make it little more narrowly focused on what you're trying to do. And I
Okay.
think easy way would be to look at how soft power narratives are being built in either India, or you can expand it to Asia by taking few other examples. But if you put it in contrast to Western narratives, then you have to take examples as to who are the leading players.
Okay.
Obviously, United States. So some more thinking about it, just take a walk and think what exactly is the serious question you're trying to answer. But otherwise, a lot of good material and excellent PowerPoint that you gave us. And so it's a good work, and you can make it even better.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Riddhi, I agree with that. Except that in your presentation, when you're talking about Asia, you are actually only talking about India. Whereas you have mentioned Japan and other countries, but their soft power is not mentioned at all. It's preferable that you basically take up one country. I mean, talking about its impact rather than basically. And if you are going to take up Asia, then what Professor Swaran Singh has said is very correct, that you take up cultural or some other parameters, you know. So what are the parameters that you're going to discuss, you know? I mean, soft power, there's a lot under, and here you're talking about films and everything, okay? Uh, but some specific parameters, if you will take an entire Asia, follow those right through. Otherwise, you take a country and talk about uh, its soft power impact, all right, post-COVID, as you said, okay? Um, but But if you are going to take on West versus Asia, all right, you have not really mentioned West and its impact on soft power, all right, which of course is very much there, and if you need to compare. Uh, so if you are taking up Asia, take up certain parameters, which you have not really done, and you have just mentioned some countries without really talking about them, only about India. Uh, in fact, all the parameters fit India. The you know they don't fit basically uh, Thailand, on they don't fit Japan, all right? They do to some extent, but not really. You're only thinking in terms of India. So rethink. It's a good topic, but rethink, all right, as to how you will present it. Okay.
Okay. Yes. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am, and sir, for your remarks. Next up, we have presentation lined up from Sri Gupta. Sriji, are you here with us? You can go ahead with your presentation now. Sri Gupta, are you here with us? Sriji, you can go ahead with your presentation. Okay, if there is some lag, so we can go ahead with the next presentation, that is by Rishya Dharmini. Rishya ji, you can go ahead with your presentation.
Hi, am I audible? Yeah, I was just
Yes, yes, you're
sharing my
audible,
screen.
but you can speak a little louder so that we can hear you better.
Uh, am I audible now? Is this
Yes,
voice better?
you are. Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Right. Good evening, everyone. I am Risha Dharmani, and originally my research topic was on ancient Indian philosophical thought process and its inspiration to strategic thought. But I realized that it would be too unwieldy, so I've limited it to ethics of warfare. And basically, after recognizing this basic contradiction in Indian strategic thought, which abhors and rejects war, and at the same time, it also welcomes it. So, this dualism in Indian strategic code is because of the simultaneous presence of this Nivriti and Pravriti traditions. Nivriti traditions are the inwardly looking monastic traditions that have preoccupation with monasticism and talk about the withdrawal from real life. Then an example would be the Vedic, Upanishadic, and the Buddhist traditions. In contrast with it, we have the Pravriti or word affirming traditions, especially the example would be Kautilya's Arthashastra or Kamanda's Nitisar. This kind of uh, contradiction is reconciled in Bhagavad Gita in that famous dialogue between Arjun and Krishna on the battlefield on why war should be fought and especially between families itself. So this kind of contradiction is never truly resolved in Indian thought system. So this paper would be an exploration of the unique Indian conception of war, especially the fact that all material and otherworldly activities in Indian thought system and Indian way of life is governed within the realm of dharma and not man's reason, as is in the case of Western philosophies. So dharma is not religion, but it is a cosmic code of conduct that governs ethical activities of everyone that is involved. It is a force of forces or power of powers. The society and state are not autonomous in this thought system, but they are governed under the moral law. In contrast with it, in the Western political thought, the Leviathan or the Western sovereign possesses an absolute sovereignty. The Kautilyan Rajan would be operating under the Dharmic umbrella. He cannot wage a total war as is being currently egged on by Russia or Israel in their respective domains, where blind victory at the cost of total destruction is being sought. So this Indian Rajan of Vijigishu will possess a qualified divinity. His first and the only task would be to ensure the Rakshan and Palan of his Praja and not seek war for his own personal glory. This is why there is a limit to why war could be fought in Indian context. And if war is fought altogether, then what would be the restraints on war? And in Mahabharata, there is a list of several transgressions which are witnessed. For example, in Ashwatthama is and Dronacharya is falsely made to believe that his son has died. So these transgressions are then later punished. So heteronomy in Indian strategic thought happens when the four different goals of human life are accepted. The role of the king or the state is to ensure the peace and prosperity within this dharmic and dand cohelix. So dandaniti is the use of legitimate force within the state to ensure that the supremacy of dharmic conduct is there within the state and everybody follows their swadharma according to the station of life. War will basically happen when there is a contradiction, there is a conflict between the self. The self here would be, the example would be within the Mahabharata, so between the families. And another war, the condition the war would happen would be war with the other. Example would be Ramayana, where Lord Ram is fighting Ravan from an opposite clan or the opposite society altogether. The battlefield in both these cases is construed as a dharma kshetra where the wrongs are avenged and the rights is upheld. This discussion is relevant in the context of current volatility happening due to regional wars, which emanates from a Clausewitzian concept of total war, which drives endless conflict and warring. Kautilya's Arthashastra or Sun Tzu's Art of War do not glorify war's amoralism. Instead, they pursue a methodologically a holistic perspective of spiritual and psychological inclinations as to why man pursues war. So, the reason for my research project is basically to focus on these non-Western concepts of war and peace. They should be their contribution to this Justin Bellow and Justed Bellow traditions should be recognized from a humanitarian perspective. And lastly, I would like to connect my understanding with the Indian position that on current global conflict that calls for this era of war and to pursue dialogue and diplomacy. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Sir, we can have your remarks on the
I
presentation.
think it's a very, I think she has, Risha has a quite clear mind as to what she's trying to achieve. And the presentation spoke clearly in a very coherent fashion in that sense. Except that initial couple of slides made me feel that perhaps you were comparing ancient Indian traditions with the Western traditions. What perhaps you're doing is you're comparing ancient Indian traditions to the contemporary practices in India, and how there is a certain disjunction given the inheritance of institutions and operative thinking about war inherited by India from colonial powers. So that could be something that you could perhaps highlight in terms of ancient Indian wisdom and the contemporary practices, and how whether and not India is really increasingly beginning to incorporate some of those ancient ideas into contemporary thinking on war. Otherwise, I think you're fairly on track on this. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Rishya, in fact, this is much better than what you had submitted earlier, because that was a bit, what should I say? You were trying to take on too much. So uh, this is much more focused, much more pointed. Uh, and I think that perhaps the comparison with the West, because you are coming up with an ancient Indian theory, which of course we also teach, I mean, with Kotadia and all that. But here you are bringing in all the other, the other sources, which is a good thing. Uh, I don't know how far, of course, because Western sources, I mean, when it comes to the West also, uh, it does not really, the modern warfare techniques and all that, I mean, we go back to Clausewitz and all that. So basically, when it comes to Machiavelli and all that, I mean, that is there, but it is developed. Here, in fact, how far it is relevant to today's, because the world has changed in the last 2000 years, is not the same. But maybe, in fact, what you're trying to develop is the ancient Indian tradition, and not just like, I mean, in China, they're doing the same thing. So here too, and I said, good thing, go ahead. It's so much better than what you had submitted earlier. Okay,
Yes, sir.
thank you, Rishi.
Thank you so much. Next up, we can go ahead with Harshdeep's presentation. Harshdeep, you can go ahead with the presentation now.
Hello, ma'am. Am I audible?
Yes.
Yes, you are.
Yeah, just a sec. Can I start, ma'am?
Yes, please go ahead.
Good morning, professors. My name is Harshdeep, and I'll be presenting my a brief presentation of my document that I'm writing on the India and China's naval front time of the present time, and analyzing them on a qualitative and quantitative basis. So the topic for my research is the Great Game at Sea, an analysis of Sino-Indian strategic competition in the Indian Ocean region. The new coming up to the new maritime center of gravity. So we know that in Asia, India and China are the two giants who collide in a asymmetric competition that will define the future of the maritime security. We know the strategic importance of the Indian Ocean, where we see that it carries over 80% of the world's seaborne oil trade, making it 21st century's global pivotal maritime theater. And on the other side, where we see a term which was coined by the United States consulting firm, which was known as the string of pearls, which China has been using over a period of time, where they've been expanding their ports in various places in the subcontinent of Asia. You talk about starting from Pakistan and going all the way to Djibouti. So these are some of the posts that the China has been included for their string of pearls strategy from Gwadar, Hambantota to Djibouti, basically to solve their Malacca dilemma, which we all have been knowing that that acts as a crucial point which it controls 80% of China's energy imports, transit, which is vulnerable at this particular point. And we also know the fact that India's unsinkable aircraft carrier has been guarding this particular point for a long period of time, which makes China insecure when it comes to their energy trades. Now we see the elephant's gambit, which is known as popularly India's necklace of diamonds. Again, this is not a term that has been coined by the governments. It's been said by the defense officials and geopolitical analysts as well. Uh, Starting from the Andaman Nicobar Command, the unsinkable aircraft carrier, as I've already talked about, which controls the Malacca Straits points. coming up to the strategic access agreements from Oman, Indonesia, and Seychelles. We have a collective security. We have Quad partnerships with the United States, Japan, Australia, and strategic alliances with other European nations, along with the Asian counterparts as well. Now, for the underwater warfare, we do know that we do lack on the asset positioning part. So we have countered it by acquiring P-81 Poseidon ASW aircraft from the United States and MH-60R helicopters, which acts as a counter warfare for the submarine threats. We know that India is someone who has never been an aggressor and have always wished for the global and the regional security. Now, for my research work, elaborating more upon it, so I've had both a qualitative and quantitative aspect of research. For the qualitative parts, since I belong from a defense background, I've interviewed various defense officers who have served in different areas of defense, be it Army, Navy, or the Air Force. But since this is a naval front time research paper, I've focused more on the Navy officers' interviews. So the limitations are going to be that since I could not get much of the responses from the Chinese counterparts to have a Chinese perspective on this particular issue, there is a possibility that some or the other way in which the Chinese population would have interpreted this situation is not covered in this research paper that I'll be writing. And also, since it is a mix of a qualitative and quantitative data, the qualitative aspect might seem to be as a bias for some other people, and for some it might be more of a thing that they have been seeing for a period of time. Thank you so much. This is my presentation for now.
Thank you so much. We can go ahead with the chair's remarks over the presentation. Sir?
Good. It's a good presentation, and I think he's again one of those who is very clear on what he's trying to do. Just two quick points. One, other than Sagar, there is also now Mahasagar Vision.
Great, sir.
I'm sure you're familiar with that. And if I can do
Sure,
some self-selling, I don't know if you saw two of my recent research articles on this very specific subject. I'm just sending it to you on this message that we can share here. And if you click on it,
Sure,
you'll
sir.
be able to reach on both of these research articles published last year on this very subject. So maybe
Correct.
you would like to use them also. Thank you.
Thanks.
Yes, Harshdeep, good presentation. But I just wanted to ask you from your work, what are your conclusions? What exactly are you concluding?
Correct, ma'am. So the conclusions of this research paper is going to be that on paper basis, we know that China is a naval giant, and as compared to the Indian Navy, because we still are lack of a one single aircraft carrier, because for the operation on both the naval front sides, we need 3 aircraft carriers, but currently we have 2. So it's an analysis as to is just the on paper writings are enough to judge two countries' strategic positioning when it comes to a naval front type, because we do know the fact that India does have a strategic edge against the China in all this naval front type. So this is just a basic analysis as to if India is well prepared and if our assets are enough to counter China's massive navy. And also we can work upon various policies as to how we can go about our foreign policies and make relations with the other counterparts, be it Europeans or the adversaries from the Asian subcontinent, to strengthen our strategic positioning, as long as we don't have an edge when it comes to the asset acquirements.
Okay, thanks, Harshdeep, because what you related is a kind of narrative which has been well repeated again and again and again, right? So your analysis is very important. The outcome, I mean, what your conclusions are is very important. Don't forget to put those in, right? Okay,
Sure,
thank
ma'am.
you. Right.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you so much. Next up, we have presentation from Advika. Advika ji, you can go ahead with your presentation now.
Hello, ma'am. Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am, you're audible.
Ma'am, I'm trying to open my video, but I don't think there's some issue. So can I just share my screen?
Yes, ma'am, you can continue like that.
Okay, one second. to go here. So, sir, I would just like to start off my presentation. And good evening. First of all, good evening to everybody. My project is titled as Smart Power in Orbit, ISRO and India's Aerospace Diplomacy. It explores how India uses its space program, not just for science, but as a tool for diplomacy and strategy. Before I begin my analysis, I would like to share a short poem that I wrote, and basically it just captures the spirit of this project. So I would just like to read it. In the silence of the skies above, India whispers science and the world hears love. From humble labs to the moon's embrace, ISRO has carved a sovereign place. Not just rockets, but bridges of trust. Soft power rising, steady and just. Training minds from the global south, credibility grows from word of mouth. Yet engines roar with a different might, hard power glimmers in the satellite's flight. Cryogenic dreams and Gaganyans test, proving India can match the best. But true strength lies in balance, not force. Smart power guiding India's course. A blend of goodwill with strength at its core, diplomacy carried from shore to shore. विज्ञान और राजनीति साथ चले, भारत के सपने सितारों तक. So now I would like to come back to my research topic, and basically actually ma'am had asked me this very important question in one of our previous sessions, and she told me, Adhika, you need to realize, why do we need aerospace diplomacy? So firstly, I would like to say that when I was trying to do research, I found four major reasons. First was strategic autonomy, which after 1974, India faced technological denial. So ISRO had to innovate independently. And second would be that regional leadership, to showcase our regional leadership. For example, we had a satellite called as GSAT-9, which was a South Asia satellite, and was gifted to our neighbors, our neighboring countries. And the third will be to have a solidarity with the global south. Like, for example, India trains over 1,500 scientists through CSS TEAP, which was founded in India in 1995. So we've been doing this for like 30 odd years now. And finally, it's like a prestige milestone for us. It's a milestone that human space flights and lunar missions built India's global image. So that's why I think aerospace diplomacy is so important. And I would like to give you a brief view of my theoretical lens for this research paper. So to understand the theory of it, I use Joseph Nye's framework, which is soft power, which, sorry. So firstly, I would say that we have a component of soft power, which is about attraction and goodwill. And the second component is of hard power, which is about capability and deterrence. But neither alone is enough. And that's where smart power comes in. And it is a blend of both. So space diplomacy is a perfect example, because satellites can deliver telemedicines, but the same rockets can also carry missiles. So that is the theoretical framework that I would like to say. And now let's see how ISRO works as a soft power. So I would like to take the same case study, that GSAT-9, which was a South Asia satellite. It was gifted to our neighboring countries, but the main aim of it was to enhance disaster management and communication. So CSS TEP also in Dehradun trains scientists from across developing countries. So these examples, which I said, they build goodwill and trust. But there are also limits. For example, Pakistan had rejected the GSAT-9, showcasing how politics can block cooperations as well. So there are limitations in soft power, but mostly ISRO can act as both soft and hard power. So now let's go on to how ISRO acts as a hard power. So on the hard power side, ISRO projects is, it supports India's strategic strength. So for example, Gaganyaan is a prestigious project, but also shows India's advanced capabilities, because in Gaganyaan, we are using cryogenic engines, which it was once denied to India by the US, and US had actually told Russia not to give us this technology, and this was 30 years ago. It took us 30 long years to finally develop a cryogenic engine, and but we made it indigenously, and this has actually strengthened our autonomy. So many ISRO assets like NAVIC and Earth observation are dual use. They are both civilian as well as military. So now I would just like to summarize the case studies some of the case studies that I took for this research. As I said, the GSAT-9, which is basically a soft power, but with limits, like the Pakistan example that I gave, and cryogenic engine. It is a hard power and builds strategic autonomy, and Gaganyaan example, which gives us prestige and also has a dual use implication. So together, these show that how ISRO's role is important in India's diplomacy. Now, I would like to blend in how soft power plus hard power would convert into smart power. So when we combine them, ISRO reflects on smart power. So basically, China's model is competitive model, and US model is very commercial model. But India's is not like that. India's is cooperative, cost-effective, and inclusive, especially appealing to the global south. It balances both cooperation with capability. So that is how we are unique in our soft power. And I would like to stress upon some of the successes and constraints of ISRO and India's space diplomacy. So the first thing is that credibility. ISRO has trusted worldwide for reliable, cost-effective missions like Chandrayaan-3. Cost-effectiveness is because India achieves world-class space at fraction of US or Chinese costs. For example, the MOM mission that we saw. And inclusivity, like initiatives like GSAT-9 and CSSTEP, they extend benefit to neighbors and to the entire global south. And constraints, I would say, is like regional rivalries. For example, the Pakistan's rejection of GSAT shows that diplomacy cannot override politics. And limited budgets. India, again, spends far less on the space rather than US or China or Russia. So it has a limiting scale. And also the third thing would be a smaller scale. ISRO leads in innovation, but lacks in massive infrastructure for bigger space projects. So that is the successes and constraints. I would like to say why all this matters, why aerospace diplomacy matters. Because in today's multipolar world, space is both a field of cooperation and competition. ISRO helps India assert autonomy, provide leadership, and project credibility. It shows how science and policy are deeply interconnected. So that is why I felt the need to, write a research on this piece of topic. And in conclusion, I would like to say that ISRO demonstrates how India has converted its space program into a tool of smart power. By gifting GSAT-9, training global south scientists, and leading cost-effective missions, India projects soft power credibility. But by mastering cryogenic engines and pursuing missions like Gaganyaan, it secures hard power autonomy with prestige. Together, these show that aerospace diplomacy is not just symbolic, but it's central to India's foreign policy, helping the country balance cooperation with capability. So that's about it. And I would like to say thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you, Advita. I recall in one of the earlier sessions, you had even more broader focus of your work, and we had narrowed it down at that time.
Right.
In same spirit, I think if we can again narrow it down slightly more.
Okay.
For example, you do underline indigenization component. You also primarily focus on achievements and delivery. Whereas your main puzzle is aerospace diplomacy.
Right.
And in diplomacy, we try to use whatever leverages we as a nation have. And ISRO should be viewed from that perspective of being India's very potent leverage in building partnerships. Diplomacy is about building partnerships.
Right.
So some of the same material, but how do you present that material? Okay. And also underline, not just the training that we give in Dehradun, but ISRO scientists, are they, going into other international space research organizations? We hear a certain number of up to 30% Indian people of Indian origin in NASA.
Yes.
So has ISRO created those constituencies which reverberate the credibility of India in terms of space research. So I think basically same material, but how do you argue your case when you talk of aerospace diplomacy, saying that India is one of the few countries that has this enormous leverage of something called ISRO, and how that has helped us in building partnerships and also in delivering um, some goodies to South Asian countries. You gave example of GSAT 9.
Yeah.
But look at your lens very carefully in terms of aerospace diplomacy, looking primarily at case of ISRO.
Okay.
And I think about 10% of this material will go away. I hope you don't like my saying that. I hope you
No.
don't misunderstand my saying that.
Yes.
But to make it even more sharply focused on ISRO as a leverage, which
Okay.
India is using in building aerospace diplomacy in terms of partnerships with the leading players, and of course also with Global South and other beneficiaries of India's satellite programs. Excellent work. I'm sure it's going to be a very good paper.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Yes, Advika, good paper and well presented. There are just 2 points in addition to what has been said.
Yes.
First is, well, as you said, as Professor Singh said, it's about diplomacy. And so also I'd like you to bring in our collaboration with NASA a little bit, you
Okay.
know, uh,
Yes.
because we do collaborate with NASA.
Yes.
Sending a person into the space station, all right, and
Right.
giving him that itself shows basically that we do work in close collaboration. And the other thing is that we wish to, in fact, is already been proclaimed that we wish to send a person, a human being, into space and bring him back. Now, one thing, of course, that India, well, it's very good at sending these satellites out and all that, but getting them back, and that is smart power, you know, because the same technology as ICBM, right? I mean, if you
Right.
can send something into space and bring it back, all right, and not like Krishiko staying there in space, all right. So that is an ICBM. So you know, a smart power. I mean, here you are, uh, well, uh, one huge step for a small step, but a huge step for India and space research and basically space diplomacy too. But at the same time, a huge step also for basically hard power, you know, the two
Correct.
together. So if you can bring that in, okay.
Yes, sir.
That's about it.
Sorry,
Advita,
Purvi,
best
with
of
your permission, if I can just add a line.
yes,
Advita, to balance it, also look at the fact that India has just agreed to lunar research track in Shanghai Cooperation Organization, where India will work together with Russia, China, and
Yes, sir.
24 other countries of SCO. So I
Yes, sir.
think
Yes, sir.
right.
balance that India is spreading wide.
Yeah,
Correct.
not only NASA, yes. Now it is agreed.
Right. Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We can have the presentation from Ms. Ravina ji. Ravina ji, are you here with us? Ravina Shivshankar. All right. If there's some lag at the end of her and she is not able to participate, we can go ahead with our next presentation. That is from Gauri. Gauri ji, you can go ahead with your presentation now. Gauri Gupta. Gauriji, are you able to hear us? Because I can see that you have joined, but if there's some issue, you can let us know in the chat box. And in the meanwhile, we can go ahead with the next presentation that is from Rishikesh. Rishikesh, you can go ahead with your presentation.
Yes, thank you. Give me 1 second. I will share my presentation.
Can she get a bit louder, please?
Yes. My presentation is visible or not?
It takes a little while. I think you
Hello.
clicked on that file. Or you
Yes,
can
sir.
click again maybe.
Now,
We see a lot of files, including the file which I think is your PPT with your
okay.
name on it.
Yes, yes, yes.
Just click again.
Uh, okay.
Or right click and open.
Yes, visible now?
Give it few
Hello.
seconds. Sometimes some computers take time, so just double click on it, on that PPT file of yours.
Rishikesh, why don't you stop share and try resharing? Open the PPT and then after that, try sharing the screen again.
Yeah, usually you should have that file open on your
I will try
screen.
that.
On your screen. Yeah.
Yes, yes.
So instead of these folders, you should have this particular folder open on you. Now we
Yeah.
can
Now we can see it.
right.
Yes. Yes. Now it's visible?
Yes.
Yes, yes, okay. Thank you. And allow me. Okay, sir. So today I'm presenting on a crucial agenda for Indian diplomacy, recalibrating influence and India's storytelling and the challenges of public diplomacy in 21st century. In a digital, interconnected and connected world, global perception directly impact policy and engagement. India's challenge is not a lack of stories, it is ensuring our narrative are strategic, continuous, and effectively received worldwide. So, this is my second slide. I hope you are, yes. So, our public policy faces three persistent problems, like our narratives are episodic, and for example, like what after Yoga Day celebration. These campaign are fragmented. Landmarks like Incredible India vanish without integrated follow through. Narratives are vulnerable due to disinformation, adversarial, manipulated content, and often outspace India's official rebuttals. As seen during the COVID-19 pandemic and Operation Sindoor. Yet our assets, robust democracy, rich culture, and global diaspora are formidable instruments of influence. Gaps persist in weak inter-ministerial coordination, limited vernacular outreach that too often exclude the grassroots, and the absence of rapid and structured rebuttal mechanism to counter disinformation at scale. So our my core findings are our visibility is episodic, whether vaccine Maitri in 2021 or the G20, for example, like our Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. And after two institutional fragmentation, different agencies work in silos without shared benchmark. Three, digital reach does not equal depth. Program like Simi largely excluded vernacular languages. And four, reputational vulnerability. After even like Operation Sindoor, and misinformation often race ahead of our clarifications. So my last slide and priority reforms and call to actions. We have outlined clear reforms to address these structural gaps. For example, like National Comprehensive Narrative Strategy, projecting India as a global health partner, yoga advocate, and leading digital innovator, and pharmaceutical exporter. Also, National Coordination Cell, one platform to align with the Indian Council and Cultural Research and cultural diplomacy, tourism, global promotions, and Ministry of External Affairs diplomatic narrative, drawing on global best practices such as Korea's K Culture Promotion Agency and the Confucius Institutes of China. So, digital and analytical hub, real-time dashboard for campaign tracking, and an empowered clarification desk to issue factual rebuttals within 48 hours of any international and disinformation spike. Vernacular diaspora and outreach. So, proactive multilingual content from missions such as posting in Swahili by our Nairobi embassy and structure engagement of diaspora influence with ready-made and authenticate India's narrative. In conclusion, India's stories are rich if we embed and coherence, credibility, and consistency into our public diplomacy. We will transfer visibility into trust and aspiration into real influence. So that is my presentation, and thank you, sir. Thank you all of you.
Thank you, Rishikesh. To me, it appears a bit light presentation. I'm not sure how serious is the paper that you're writing. For your readers, you have to first define what exactly is public diplomacy. It does simply aim at educating both the host nation and the host media, host civil society, wherever the missions of India are. Their
I
job is
think
to
my
educate.
network is.
This is
Hello,
being
sir. Can you?
recorded, so you can access it later also. My comments will be recorded on IMPRI website. So defining public diplomacy is very significant so that then you and the readers don't confuse cultural diplomacy with public diplomacy. Second, I think when you talk of limitations of public diplomacy, you have to contextualize the challenges that public diplomacy is facing today from media diplomacy, from cyber diplomacy, from netizens, the speed of information dissemination, which state public diplomacy cannot compete with, because anything that comes out of public diplomacy is authenticated. It's a state version of things that happen and the way state responds to those things. Whereas media diplomacy, netizens, cyber diplomacy can shoot off anything very quickly and in fact disrupt the narrative. So the challenges that public diplomacy today faces are very formidable, and with that backdrop, limitations of public diplomacy need to be understood, and why it is still more significant, even if it is not able to keep pace with the other cyber spaces. The authenticity of what it does and the stateliness of what it does is what makes this public diplomacy distinct, and it sometimes is confused in terms of public diplomacy trying to influence, which is not what it does. It seeks to educate both Indian citizens. So our ministry has to educate Indian citizens, do the outreach in various cities, various universities, go and discuss those things, but also educate, our missions have to educate all those host nations stakeholders, whether they are business people or media or civil society or politicians. And that is a serious business. And so try to somewhere underline the gravitas of public diplomacy, which I thought was a bit missing in your presentation. Best wishes, and I'm sure you will be able to improve it.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you for feedback, sir. I will implement all feedbacks in my research paper. Thank you, sir.
Yes, Rishikesh, the same comments more or less. You try to bring in too many things without really explain what is public diplomacy. And you take up, Yoga Day and, things like that, diaspora. Why don't you just stick to one, public diplomacy and the diaspora? What is basically the External Affairs Ministry, all right, and public diplomacy doing to bring, because diaspora is a big thing they're doing the present government, all right, rallying the diaspora, and you see how the diaspora basically welcomes the Prime Minister. So you could kind of, rather than going around. So basically, what you need to focus on is what is public diplomacy? What are the objectives of your present study? Don't take on too many things. I mean, basically, clarify what are the objectives, stick to that, and what is the methodology you are going to use. All right, is narratives. Yours is a narrative also. I mean, it's your ideas coming. I mean, through as a narrative. So basically, uh, what is the methodology that you are going to use? All right. So the tools that you're going to use to well. Uh, uh, Study your objectives and come to a conclusion, right? So be very clear about that. And don't take on just things like yoga day and whatever it is, and then there is nothing. Uh, so you're kind of mixing cultural diplomacy and public diplomacy. I would suggest that basically take public diplomacy and diaspora, all right, uh, and focus on that, something like that. And you must have some objectives and a proper methodology. Okay, what you will take up, and be very clear about the focus. What in the methodology? What are the parameters that you are going to look at?
Yes.
Not just PM's visits and how they reacted. All right, why they reacted in the first place. So basically, there is of course something that arouses, and that is public diplomacy. Right? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you so much. Next up, we have presentation from Radhvi Vitiraji.
Hello. I'll just share my screen. Is it visible?
Yes, Raghavi, it's visible.
Thank you. I just want to preface this by saying I'm just 17 and I'm sure, a lot of stuff to correct in this, and I'm very open to feedback. And professors, I'd love to know what you think. I actually changed my topic a few weeks ago and I submitted an updated abstract. So I haven't yet discussed it with you, so I'd love to know what you think. So I'll just begin now.
Yes, please.
Yes, please go ahead.
Okay, so this is what I'll be going through today. And so this is basically how my idea came about. And okay, so basically, whenever my grandmother used to visit London, she always insisted on going to the South Asian grocery store. And of course, in the whole Indian achar chahiye thing, she went and picked up her favorite mango pickle. And last summer, I picked up the jar and I was like, let's look at the label, let's look at where it was created, where it was made and manufactured. And I expected a made in the UK sign, and I found manufactured in Rajkot, Gujarat. So this mango pickle jar was exported from India. It was sold in the UK, and then it was carried back to India in my nani's suitcase. And while this achar was not available in India, it was manufactured here and then taken over there. And it was exported to the UK. And this single jar just told me that there's a bigger story between trade routes, policies, and decisions that shape trade. And it made me wonder how PTAs influence not just goods, but also who gains and who gets left behind when this trade is made. So this is my topic, how preferential trade agreements shape inequality in developing economies. So often globalization promotes prosperity, talks about how trade agreements help nations. But what a lot of research papers have understood, they miss out on the fact that there are also several negatives, especially in developing economies, that can't support some of their sectors, can't support their manufacturing sectors, can't support their primary creation sectors. Sorry. Sorry, 1 second, it's just lagging. Let me just share it again, my bad. Can you just give me a second? Can you see it now?
Not yet. I think it's on its way then.
Yeah. Just wait a second then. I'll just share it like this.
Yes.
It's not going on full screen. I hope that's okay. Okay. Can you see the screen?
Yes, we can see your slide now, but it's not full screen as you mentioned.
Yeah, it's just not happening on
If you
full.
can't get it full screen, it's fine. Just go ahead, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what I'll be talking about is PTAs. We often reduce these PTAs to just statistics, how GDP is growing, how economy is growing, how export volumes are growing, and FDI inflows are growing. But these PTAs aren't just numbers, and I want to talk about the fact that they're not just numbers. They're political tools. They redistribute opportunity, power, wealth. They talk about the actual people within these economies and within societies. And at their core, of course, is their exclusive trade deals. And I'll be talking about the definition, the introduction, obviously. I'll go over all of that. But my main point is how growth is not equally shared. And in theory, they make economies more competitive and they reshape domestic labor markets, they shift income patterns. And the thing is, they privilege certain sectors over others. And they look like success stories, but they often make exports more competitive. So, this is what I'll be talking about, and this is just a map of countries that have the most trade agreements. So, what happens with these PTAs? There's, of course, lower tariffs. This leads to more exports, more FDIs, more competition between economies. But the thing is, they also lead to more unemployment and more inequalities. And this is just the UN SDG goal, the 10th goal. So while some sectors are thriving, the manufacturing and service industries for some economies, which are the export-driven economies, they usually thrive under PTAs. But these agricultural, the informal sectors, they suffer because they face increased competition without adequate subsidies or policy support. All of this is talked about in normal textbooks, so I'll be moving on to why I'm writing this paper. So Mexico and NAFTA, it's just a research study, a case study that I'll be taking in my paper. I'll also be taking the South Sudan case study in the East African trade agreement and how they benefited from this trade agreement, but they also lost out because all of their rice exports were limited due to the monetary union that they entered. So my aim is to investigate how PTAs affect domestic income inequality in developing economies by examining tariff reductions, labor provisions, FDIs, and their influence on who benefits and who is excluded from this liberalization. So my methodology will basically be consisting of the research design. I'll be talking about a comparative analysis of bilateral and regional PTAs. I'll be talking about the independent variables, which is the laws, the clauses, the labor and wage protection provisions, the FDI related regulations, and the dependent variables, which are the income inequalities. I'll also be talking about the India-UK agreement, the SADC as I talked about, and then the NAFTA agreement as my case studies. I'll be looking at the UN databases, WTO, World Bank, OECD, ITC, and I'll also be evaluating the OECD Happiness Index. I'll also be looking at these resources. So I'll just leave these over here. These are two main research papers that I found really relevant to my topics that I just picked off of JSTOR. And these were the policy documents that I'll be going over and all of the reforms and the agreements that were taking place. So my study, why I want it to be unique, why I am aiming it to be unique, and why I've created this is because a lot of studies talked about yes and no, pros and cons, who gains, who is left behind. But I'm trying to create a link. Okay, yeah. I'm trying to create a link between the micro and macro level, the individual level insights versus the consumer patterns. I'll also be looking at labor provisions and developing economies. And this is the main, if you'll just allow me like one more minute, this is the main aim and the scope of my research study. I'll be looking at the timing. So half of my paper will be talking about how what the influence is, who is it's affecting. But I'll also be going forward to look at alternative approaches. So I think that's a unique point that I can include in my paper. The timing, whether phase-ins can protect vulnerable groups, how weighted tariff schedules can help these groups, how longer phase-ins, whether it's 10 to 15 years, these can help high and low skill employment to thrive. Then we can have staggered quotas and tariffs. So we can start with lower tariff and tariff rate quotas before giving full liberalization. There's also snapback safeguards if job losses, import surges, or prices collapse beneath certain thresholds. Tariffs can temporarily revert. Although all of this is open to interpretation, it's not always feasible. I'll just be talking about some alternatives that can take place. Then I'll be looking at targeting. So we can prevent transshipment and not exclude SMEs. So we can allow regional communication so that poorer partners can also benefit from these agreements and they're not just pressured and bullied into them. Then we can look at teeth, which is enforcing the social floor, how labor and environment chapters can be tied to these sanctions, living wage, hours enforcement, and supply chain due diligence, so that these agreements don't just focus on large industries, but they also look at the common ground. They look at anti-monopoly tools and how to prevent certain industries from taking over the entire agreement. Then there's also transfers, which is the Trade Adjustment and Reskilling Fund, which is TARF, which is pre-funded by a tiny share of tariff revenue and FDI concession fees. So this can also ensure that there's equality and equity maintained, most of all. Then there's also transparency. This again is not always viable for economies to be transparent, but I think there should be they should publish quarterly dashboards. They should look at the Gini coefficient. They should look at rural wages. They should look at female labor force and their participation, along with like a 5-year equity review maybe. Then inclusion is a very important part of it, and I think Professor Bhattacharya also talked about this in her presentation about gender and MSME chapters. So these carve-outs and these targets for women-owned and small suppliers should be maintained within the purchasing, not as like quotas for them, but it also should be kept in mind. Then I was looking at a agricultural window. There could be price stabilization tools, and I'm sorry, I'm taking a lot of time, but this is just basically the scope of my research. This is what I want to talk about, and I want to provide alternatives with due diligence. I'll research a lot about it, but this is basically it. Thank you.
Thank you, Raghavi. Let me be quick in making few points. A very interesting area to look at. Basically, you're talking about the world trade through PTAs or the larger phenomena of globalization has created a new category of people called left behind people.
Yes.
And there are important scholars, Paul Collier's, for example, or Darones Moglu have done work on that. Very indirectly, Amrita Sen has also done work on it. I think for you, it will be important to pick up one case instead of, I think you mentioned of Sudan, and I think you mentioned
NAFTA.
and some other cases also. NAFTA and Mexico, you have to pick up just one case where you are able to underline what are the alternative innovative strategies that have been uh, sort of put in practice, because this is usual, because international trade simply works on simple method of what we call low hanging fruits, believing in what economists call trickle down theory. If one sector shoots ahead with prosperity, it will have trickle down impact for others, but it does create inequality. Last 20 years research has shown that rapid progress in one particular export sector creates social instability and economic inequality. And there's a whole, as I mentioned, works on quote unquote left behind people, and that has created ruptures in societies, and the whole rise of rights sometimes is linked to that kind of process around the world now. Excellent theoretical frame, very, very interesting to look at. But just pick up one case and focus on whether any innovative strategies have been able to create what we seek out as inclusive development.
Okay.
Has that been a case anywhere? I think that is something which should precisely make a good paper from you. Thank you. You began with an interesting story from your grandma.
Yeah, that's how I got thinking about this
That's a good
topic.
peg to start, but let it be just a couple of lines and then move on to the serious meat of the
Yeah,
story.
of course, of course. It was just an introduction for you.
Best wishes.
Thank you, sir.
Raghavi, interesting topic and everything, but can you change from basically how, you start with how to do, because when you are using how, it means that you already think, you've already decided that there are people who are left behind. So do is a better question to start with. I mean, do does it result in basically people being left behind? And then, as Professor Swaran Singh has said, you go ahead uh, with just one case study and try to prove your point, all right? Rather than, so it's not just how. Uh, that is what I was thinking. And you've taken on too much here uh, for one project. All right, and this is a time-bound, limited project. So basically, uh, make it much more focused. All right, you've taken on a lot of parameters. Inclusivity is just one of them, but there are many other things, trade, etc., and all that. So stick to just a few, all right, of these, and uh, explain why you are taking those on, and go ahead. Right.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Professor. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Also, my apologies to Professor Bhattacharya and Purvi. With your permission, I'll have to leave now. Yeah.
We
No
will
problem, sir.
equally have
We'll
you,
be
sir.
seeing
Thank you so much for
we'll be seeing
joining.
you again shortly, I hope. Yeah.
Yes, of course. Of course. I'll be in touch with all of you. Best wishes.
All right, we can move ahead with our few presentations left. And next up, we have a presentation from Shrishti ji. If she is present with us, she can present her presentation now. Or we can move ahead with Viveka ji's presentation.
Yes, Priyanka. Is my voice audible?
Yes,
Yes.
Viveta, and I'm presenting your presentation. Just give me a second.
Sure. Thank you.
Can you see the presentation?
Not yet. Yes. Thank you. Good evening, everyone. I'm Viveta. So my talk today is India's resilience diplomacy in the Indo-African Maritime Corridor. Since it's my first academic exploration of Africa, I have to keep the focus broad to see, to understand Africa's big picture in the Indo-Pacific before narrowing down for my future research. So during my presentation, you'll notice that there are picture representations in my slides paired with a short free verse, followed by a commentary So the verse highlights important elements that I used in my research, and the commentary explains the meaning of the verse in simple terms. Next slide, please. All right. So when we talk about the Indo-Pacific, people often think only of Asia, the US, or the Australia. But the Indo-Pacific cannot function without Africa. Its geography is like a main door that open global trade. So we all know how important Mombasa, Djibouti ports are strategically. Yet, Africa is often left out of the Indo Pacific debates. So, we see China has stepped in, it has been setting up its bases, it's building ports, it gives big loans to Africa. It brings quick results, but there is also an enormous risk of dependency and it threatens the sovereignty of Africa. So India's model is different. So India uses what I call resilience diplomacy, which simply means helping partners build resilience on their own through training or humanitarian aid or cooperative trade. So in simple terms, China reflects control, a strategic control, while India builds capacity. Next slide, please. All right. Silent Ocean Road, ships wave threads between the shores. Africa stands tall. So, this is the photo of Mombasa port, and it reminds us that Africa is not just a stop on the map, it is a hub. It's like a junction where global trade routes meet and connect. So, without these ports, especially I'm talking about Africa, the whole Indo Pacific trade system would be incomplete. So, Africa is central, it's not just a junction. Next slide, please. Not with iron chains, but with hands that lift and heal. Trust becomes the tide. So, this image shows the Indian Navy alongside the Kenyan Navy. It symbolizes partnership and trust, as you can see from the picture. For example, after Cyclone Ida in Mozambique or during the COVID time, it was the Indian Navy which rushed with medicines and relief supplies to Africa. So, beyond just the military presence, India is also training the African naval officers, is conducting surveys for the overall development of Africa, and it builds a local capacity. And this is exactly resilience diplomacy cooperation is like. It's not just about strategic control or coercion or the urge to gain autonomy over other nations' sovereignty. Next slide, please. Cape of changing winds, no longer Europe's backdoor, Africa leads forth. So, the Cape of Good Hope was once used mainly by Europeans as a backdoor when the Suez Canal was blocked during the strategic tensions. But from an African perspective, it is no longer a backdoor, it is the main route. So it shows how Africa is leading forward beyond just connecting the global north and the south. If we see to the post colonial lens, we can see that Africa brings a very important connectivity to the global south. Next slide, please. All right. So I built this research on two theories. First one is the Afrocentric theory, which puts Africa at the center of its own story, not just on the silence of global south and global north. The second, I used resilience diplomacy. It is about India's way of building a long term strength instead of short term control or a strategic takeover. So the method I used was qualitative document analysis, where I studied African and Indian perspectives in diplomatic speeches, research papers, and policy papers. And here are a few main academic references that helped me with my research. So to conclude, Africa is not just a connector in the Indo-Pacific, and India's approach of resilience diplomacy is not only about strategy, it is about dignity for the partner nations. And that this is the main reason why I chose to explore Africa in my research, to emphasize the fact that it is not just a connector, a trade route, or a backdoor, but as a front door towards the overall rise of the global south. Thank you.
Thank you, Viveta. That was a bit refreshing because we most of the work coming out of India is India-centric. Here you're talking about Afrocentric. Now, what is Afrocentric theory? If you can just very briefly tell me, is there any theory? I mean, basically, you would say Afrocentric theory. What is Afrocentric theory? Can you name a person or whatever?
Could you please repeat the question? I think there was a glitch in between. Apologies.
Uh, Afrocentric theory. Can you explain Afrocentric theory? I mean, name at least one person, just one person, who has uh, coined the term Afrocentric
All
theory.
right. Yeah, sure, ma'am. So basically, what I imply as Afrocentric strategically is how Africa is acting as one of the leading security partner as well as trading partner with the global south. So we see a lot of emphasis on India as a rising power, um, Korea as the rising power, and recently we have Italy's participation in the Indo-Pacific. Um, so I think there is a lesser emphasis put on Africa's role in improving the overall credibility and stability of
Right,
the
but in
Indo-Pacific.
academics, I don't think there is anything called Afrocentric theory. This is generalization. So basically, avoid making any kind of generalization. I understand what you're trying to do. You're looking at it, and I'm very glad you're doing it because everything is either China-centric or India-centric. I mean, they look at it from India's point of view, and China counters it from its point of view, and again, India counters. But Africa is what? The recipient rather than an active player. All right. Uh, Now, I think that in your paper, you have talked about Chinese sports and what India is doing and how India basically, I mean, you're talking about resilient diplomacy and all that, but all that is fine. Uh, you have shown the port of Mombasa, the Zimbabwe. For centuries, it was the hub, the trading this thing. You see, I mean, from Europe, from the Roman Empire, they used to touch in Africa and then all the way to China. And basically, as you know, Islam came to India from that side. All right, it's the Arab dhows and the Chinese dhows which were actually carrying out the trade. Now, so that was a different world altogether. Uh, but what role does Africa play in the Indo-Pacific region, uh, or rather, basically, the littoral states of Africa play in this kind of an equation? I think you should focus on that rather than talking about very briefly talking about China and its model and India and its model. But since you're focusing on Africa, all right, Africa as a central point, uh, I would like you to bring out some of the how basically uh, Africa is kind of, you see, very, very important. Uh, Not as sports, not as basically, uh, uh, where China is building, all right, structures, military structures, and India too, in the Seychelles and all that. But what is Africa doing? All right. Does Africa play an active role, or would you suggest that it does? It should play an active role. So, Viveta, just since yours is Afrocentric, all right, uh, focus on what the littoral states of the huge continent, all right, what role do they play? And does AU have any, all right, uh, any focus on the Indo-Pacific? Just there, take a look at the AU documents and look at Indo-Pacific and see what is its policy towards the Indo-Pacific. Do you get my point, Vivek?
Yes, exactly. Thank you so much for that recommendation. as I mentioned earlier, since it's my first academic exploration, I was intentionally keeping it broad. And what you have pointed out is really an important a change maker to my research. And thank you so much for your recommendation.
Thank you, Vivek. I'm sure you do a good job.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for remarks, ma'am. Next up, we have presentation from Srishti. Srishti, I guess you have joined us, and you can go ahead with your presentation now.
Hi, am I audible?
Yes, ma'am, you're audible.
Srishti, do you want me to share your presentation? You have shared it with us on our email ID.
Sorry?
I'm asking, do you want me to share your presentation, the one that you shared with us over email ID?
Works with me. Yeah.
All right, ma'am.
Yeah, this is not the first slide, but that's okay. Yeah. So I've picked a topic which is about passport and privilege and how the structural inequality has embedded within the international mobility system using the Henley's Passport Index as an analytical tool. Can I get the next slide, please? Yeah, so I'm focusing on the Henry's Passport Index data sheets and comparing them. My objective is mainly to analyze the global mobility inequality via Henley Passport Index. And what I'm trying to do is to show that the passport power is not merely a reflection of administrative convenience, but a continuation of deeper global divides rooted in colonial legacy, economic hierarchies, and geopolitical alignment. And by investigating the systematic disadvantage faced by the emerging economies like India, I want to highlight how international visa regime reinforces a stratified global order in which mobility is a privilege and not a right. Can I get the next slide? Yeah. So talking about the Henley's Passport Index, it is a global passport ranking that measures the visa-free or visa-on-arrival access for each country's passport holders, indicating the passport's travel strength. But what it misses is why the visa restrictions have been implied, geopolitical leverage, economic profiling, and migration fears. But at the same time, I do realize that there are reasons for the visa restrictions, such as illegal migration. But I would like to point out that 5.4 million Indians live in US legally, even though there are 2% of people living there illegally. Can I have the next slide? No, can I get the next slide? Yeah. So the high income nations normally think, such as US or EU, normally think that people from the global south, they have a perception that the people from the global south are going to migrate there illegally. And as I stated, there are 5.4 million people living there legally. Yeah, next. Yeah, so my comparative metrics is going to be passport strength by numbers of visa-free destination, correlation with GDP per capita, HDI, and political alliances. I'm going to mainly focus on case studies with India with comparative analysis of other emerging economies like former colonies such as Nigeria or Indonesia. Can I get the next slide? Yeah, and this is probably the last slide. And what I want to focus on is that even though India has a non-alignment policy, still countries with powerful blocs such as NATO enjoy easier mobility compared to that of South because they obviously feel like they can be trusted. At the same time, India, which is one of the developing economies and one of the major power in the world today, faces restrictions along with other countries. Yeah, that's what I want to mainly focus on. Yeah, no, that's fine. I think I'm done.
Thank you so much, Rishiji. Ma'am, we can have your remarks over the presentation.
Yes, Srishti, this is an interesting study, but I think you need to go deeper, all right? Not just the Hindi index and all that on passports, but I would like you to have your own assessment, all right, regarding this. It's very right. I mean, of course, there is inequality, there is access to mobility itself is there, but there are different levels. When it comes to migrants and getting passports, there's a lot of let's say Pakistani, Indian, Bangladeshi, etc. labor going to work outside, all right, in the Middle East or wherever there is, there's this push and pull effect. So basically, take that into account. Also, I mean, you have not mentioned that, all right. So uh, uh, this is again a very Western way of looking at things, but try to give it also a different perspective, all right. Uh, it's interesting, but as I said, that you need to analyze it deeper, not just look at the literature which is available in the West, but try to think it out for yourself. Okay.
Yeah,
Um,
thank you so much, ma'am.
yeah, do you get what I mean,
Take into
Srishti?
account. Sorry?
Okay. Do you understand what I mean?
Yeah.
Because you are just actually taking straight out of Western theory and Western this thing. You need to, all right, think on your own. And so far as developing nations are concerned, there is a digital divide. There's a huge divide, all right, as such. I mean, in income inequality, and that's why there's push and pull effect when it comes to going abroad. And passports are easy to get, all right. Uh, we do not give a visa access. Well, it's not open visa or anything like that, or visa on arrival to some countries, yes. But what about uh, well, you have Shenzhen. Uh, Within that, they can travel themselves. But when it comes to outside, that area, you have to have a visa. The UK, well, calls for a visa. So does the United States, all right, when it comes to other countries. So there is, of course, well, high income countries, etc., they also, so that access is kind of limited on to those who uh, come. But they do allow people who go there to work, labor, etc. They do allow to some extent. All right, Canada does. All right, to and there's a lot of inequality. So think it out on your own about high income and middle income, low income countries, push and pull effects, passports, how people are working there. Try to give a different perspective to, all right, the Western perspective. Okay.
Yeah, thank you so much, ma'am.
Yeah, thank you, sister.
Thank you so much, Shishiji. Thank you so much, Mark. We have few presentations left, and in case when I took name earlier and somebody would have missed by any chance their presentation, they can go ahead now. So,
how many are left, Purvi?
Yes, ma'am.
How many are left? How many are left?
Ma'am, I guess so. We would have 3 to 4 presentations that we are expecting. Yes.
Okay.
So, is Kedar ji is present with us? Kedar ji, would you like to go ahead and present your presentation? And if not, we have Vaishnavi ji in the list. All right. Can we have Anvita Pandey? Anvita ji, are you present with us? I can see that, yes, ma'am. Would you be able to present, ma'am?
No, I'm so sorry. As I had mentioned, I would be presenting on Saturday.
All right, ma'am. Noted. Thank you so much. And last name that I can see on the list is of Sashwata Ghosh. Sashwata ji, are you present with us?
Yes, I'm present, but can I present on the other day?
Sure, sir. All right. So is there anyone who would like to present? Is there anyone? If not, I would like to take up the opportunity and would present my research now with your due permission, ma'am. All right. So I have shared my presentation with Arya from our team. Arya, would you be able to present the screen?
Yeah, just a second.
Yes.
Is my screen visible?
Yes, your screen is visible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes. Yes, so good evening, everyone, and thank you so much for taking out your time for this session. Today, I'll be presenting my creative project that is titled as From Strategic Competition to Selective Collaboration, where I try to explore India-China's technological rivalry, but I'd also try to look beyond it towards the emerging spaces of cooperation. India and China are Asia's two largest powers, as we all know. While our relationship has often been defined by border tensions, economic competition, technological decoupling, the reality is much more complex. Interestingly, even amid rivalry, we are seeing new pockets of collaboration. For example, particularly looking at the technology aspect and also trade and also multilateral forums like SCO and ASEAN. As we are all aware about the recent summit that has took place in Tianjin, I'll be briefly mentioning that in my presentation too. So can we move ahead or the next slide? Sana, can you move ahead with the next slide? Yes, yes, this one. Technology as the new statecraft. Yeah, so technology has emerged as a new frontier of statecraft between India and China. On one side, there is a growing strategy competition. China's push through its digital Silk Road and the leadership in AI and 5G. India's digital public infrastructure diplomacy is there, and partnerships within the Quad and other tech coalitions, which often explores the rivalry between the two of the nations, and also tensions over the semiconductors and space exploration and cyber norms are also there. But if we look at the other side of the story that is emerging through cooperation, for example, the recent summit that I mentioned, SEO summit in Tianjin just last week, Prime Minister Narendra Modi and President Xi discussed trade, investment, connectivity, visa relaxations, and even direct flights between our countries. Additionally, President Xi has also announced a multi-billion-dollar SCO development bank and lending package, opening avenues for joint digital infrastructure projects where India could play a key role. So technology is not just a tool of rivalry, but it is also trying to becoming a bridge if we are trying to explore this dimension in the future. But we all are aware, we don't know like what unprecedented aspects would also come in. So can we ahead with the next slide? Third one. Yeah, regional multilateralism as a platform for cooperation. To better understand these cooperative spaces, we need to look at the multilateral platforms where India and China engages. Within the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, that is SCO, despite the strategic differences, India and China try to collaborate on cyber security initiative, regional trade connectivity, digital pavement frameworks. At the ASEAN-India Summit in Genting, India positioned itself as a leader in digital transformation. Our DPI, digital public infrastructure model, has also gained attention simultaneously, and also ASEAN nations, where China also has a strong influence, are becoming a shared space of tech and trade convergence. So similarly, India's Act East policy also emphasizes maritime security, fintech, AI, and energy transition. These are the areas where India and China can compete and cooperate simultaneously while sharing their shared interests. So in short, like multilateralism is softening edges of rivalry while still safeguarding strategic interests. Can we go ahead with the next slide? Yeah, this one. So to visualize this dynamic, like I have mapped India-China's relation on the spectrum of competition to cooperation. So post 2020, we saw major border tensions at Galwan, followed by growing techno-nationalism. But post 2025, there's a shift. Forums like SCO and ASEAN are getting heat in the market and also acting as a stabilizers. And I would like to quote two contrasting perspectives here. And the first one is from Economic Times editorial, which has mentioned that China's advancements in AI highlight opportunities for other nations, including India, to to ramp up collaborative efforts in emerging technologies. And the second one is from our respected Prime Minister Narendra Modi at the East Asia Summit, where he has mentioned that our vision is for development and not expansionism. So these two quotes capture the essence. India seeks strategic autonomy while exploring shared growth opportunities. Next slide. Pathways for future tech cooperation. Looking ahead, there are like 5 key pathways for India and China tech cooperation. Like these are like highly competitive, but I think like with the scholars have also mentioned that there could be a cooperation segment also. So the first one is AI and generative AI ethics, developing shared frameworks for responsible innovation. Second one is digital public infrastructure, DPI. India can share its DPI expertise with the global south, where China is also investing. The third one is semiconductors and supply chains, working through SCO and ASEAN to secure diversified resilient networks. The fourth one is maritime and cybersecurity, building confidence via joint disaster relief, safe navigation, and cyber crime monitoring. The last one that I could capture is about institutional mechanisms, establishing an India-China tech dialogue under SCO or BRICS to align on standard norms and governance, so that getting hands on each other would be much more easier in that way, and the cooperation too. So these aren't easy, but they are strategically necessary if both countries want to shape the future of global tech governance. And next one, the last slide. Yeah. For the final insights, to conclude, India-China relations in technology are neither pure rivalry nor seamless partnership. In a fragmenting world order, we are witnessing a unique blend of competition and selective cooperation, particularly through the forums like the SCO, ASEAN, and BRICS. So the key question that emerges here: how can India leverage these emerging opportunities for cooperation without compromising its sovereignty and normative leadership? That is what I'm also trying to explore through my research, and there's a lot to read and understand from all the participants and the fellows who are here with us in this fellowship. Thank you so much, and I look forward to your feedback.
Would be good presentation and focused and all that, but I'd rather you not use the word collaboration, which you have in the beginning, rather cooperation, because collaboration comes much later, and let's see how it works out. Apart from SCO and ASEAN, perhaps you can also bring in the BRICS and G20, where there is cooperation or data sets between the two. If you are focusing only on technology and AI and all that, then too, all right, as such, it's not BRICS, but then G20 may have a bit of that. I'm not very sure. I really haven't studied G20, but take a look. Are you only focusing on AI and technology cooperation?
No. But like I'm trying to define my research as specific as possible, but there would be more aspects to cooperation, but there is still a lot more to read, but these are the ones which I could take a hand on because they are like more paid attention to. When I read all of the scholars, these are the emerging areas that were there.
Okay, what about trade? Because that has been there a long time.
Yeah.
Right? So even when there was Galwan, there was still trade going on, right? So if you could mention that, you could certainly bring in a bit of the trade bit, all right? That there is cooperation, even when there are moments of distrust and all that. Trade was not really. It did go down a little bit, but then it came up again in no time at all whatsoever. So maybe just bring in the bilateral trade between the two, all right? Problems with FDI, which also comes in over here. Okay. Chinese FDI. I mean, they are collaborating in actually building infrastructure here, all right? They do have something else. So basically, go a bit deeper into it rather than just AI and tech. There is a lot of cooperation. Since you're talking about India-China cooperation, all right, don't use the word collaboration, as I said. We don't collaborate. We cooperate. So far, collaboration may come later, but not quite yet. Thanks, Ruby. That was a good presentation. Yeah.
Thank you so much, ma'am. I'll try to inculcate the FTA and also the trade part. I could present a case study perhaps over that. Thank you so much. All right. Thank you everyone for joining today with us. Ma'am, we would like to have your closing remarks over today's session, and then we can formally end the session.
Okay, I think all the presentations were good, and people were prepared for the, well, those who presented. They were certainly prepared and they're focused. And what should I say? Everybody kept to their time, and I think this was a much more organized, better this thing that I have come across over here. I mean, each one actually was to the point, more or less. So they're prepared. Thank you everyone for your good, some of them really very good presentations. Okay, and the very best for your writing later on when when you finish your projects. Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much for your remarks, ma'am. So with this, I would like to proceed to a formal vote of thanks. As we conclude day 8 of the Diplomacy, Foreign Policy and Geopolitics Youth Fellowship, Cohort 2.0, I, Purvi Narayan, on behalf of IMPRI, Center for International Relations and Strategic Studies, extend my heartfelt gratitude. We sincerely thank our experts for the day, Professor Swaran Singh ji, Professor Sanjukta Bhattacharya ji, for their invaluable contributions and for engaging us in a powerful discussion. And we thank all of our fellows for their thoughtful presentations today. And we look forward to reading your research essays that you'll be submitting soon and seeing how your ideas will develop further. So sessions, readings and resources will be shared via email. A video recording of today's session will also be available for reference. We look forward to seeing you on September 6th at 3 p.m. With other presentations for our second day of fellows presentations. If you're watching this session later on YouTube, listening via podcast or reading our publications, we truly appreciate your engagement and support. Once again, thank you all for being a part of this initiative. Wishing you a great evening ahead. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Purvi, and thanks all the visitors.
Thank you, ma'am.